or rather, are they
All
coming
right, here we
healthy?
go. We're going to be on the air in just a second. Let's bring this up as we discuss
We're
it,
on
Rose.
Facebook. Absolutely.
Welcome, Facebook. This is the Veterans Impact Show. I'm here with Jeff Gault and Rose Gault. We're going to be talking about the Army Scholarship Foundation in just a second. This is Veterans Impact. Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where we continue the mission of highlighting veterans and service organizations who continue to serve our community and our nation. We're brought to you by Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Don't worry, retire happy. Welcome aboard. Good day. What an absolutely gorgeous day. And today is the second day of the State Fair of Texas. This is also ragweed season. So if I sneeze or cough, just give me a little bit of grace here because the pollen count is so high, it's ridiculous. But it's State Fair time, but it's also one of my favorite times of the year. And students are going back to school. They're now thinking ahead. What am I going to do when I graduate? What am I going to do when I go forward? And what we want to talk about today is the military family. And one of the most important aspects of the military family, in my opinion, is the scholarships and the way families work together. I have a fabulous couple, Jeff Gault, U.S. Army Colonel, retired, and Rose Gault. She was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Diversity under the George Bush and the Obama administrations for the U.S. Air Force. What a great family. You guys are the epitome of the military family, and I am so blessed to have you. Let's talk about Army Scholarship Foundation and tell me a little bit about what it is because a lot of people don't know.
Well, the Army Scholarship Foundation gives scholarships to children of soldiers and spouses of active duty enlisted soldiers. We've been doing this for over 20 years and have given out thousands of scholarships to our military family members over that period of time.
And Rose, I have enjoyed so much going through and being with you guys and looking at all of the applications. So your mission statement is to help these kids with a scholarship that gets them going, correct?
Absolutely. As Jeff said, we give out those scholarships. We give to students. We give them to spouses as well, because what a lot of people don't know is that military families suffer financially enormously, Jim. They don't make as much money as people in similar jobs in civilian life. A lot of our soldiers are on food stamps. They have to go for assistance from WIC when they have small children. So they desperately need money. So we also want those spouses to come to us and to get assistance with their scholarships. They really, really need the help.
I think, though, your scholarship, from what I have seen, is sort of a one step that takes them into a great direction because other scholarships, once they're vetted with Army scholarship, there are other scholarships out there. There are other opportunities out there. What I'm also amazed is these kids in the applications that I read are beyond excellent. They're really good. And I appreciate you guys letting us do that. Now, where can let's go to right now. Where can people apply? Where can they find out about Army scholarships?
Well, our website is www.armyscholarshipfoundation.org, armyscholarshipfoundation.org. And I see it's there up on the website now. And there's information there on the scholarships. There are press releases on the scholarships that we have provided previously. There are also opportunities to donate to help our efforts to help our military families. There you can see a picture of the many, many scholarship recipients that we've had over the years. So www.armyscholarshipfoundation.org.
And it's a great organization. A lot of us pitch in to help you that we weren't Army, but we're there for you. I think it's also important, Rose, before the program, we were talking about what military families go through and go ahead and let's go back to that conversation because they go through so much in terms of moving. Mom or dad are both serving in the military. Explain a little bit about that, of what Army families deal with.
Yes, Jim, definitely. Of course, it's a sign of the times these days that maybe both parents can be serving, and that makes it even harder. You have to appoint a guardian for your children. We are a little bit older, so in my case, only my spouse, my husband served. But nevertheless, for example, after my son was born, the first 5 years of his life, we moved every year, which meant that the older children had to change schools every year. My daughter had to change schools for the senior year of her high school. That was really very hard. So it made the children also resilient, though, as we were talking earlier. It's my children, when I ask them something, when they need to do something, they're ready to go on a moment's notice. They're they're just, as I said, very resilient. They can deal with hardship, and it always has made them stronger. And I hear that from other families, from other military families. They have experienced the same with their children. It is a tough life. We've had to move overseas. We went 8 times. We had 4 tours overseas, and then of course you have your tours where the spouse is gone for a longer period of time, or they have to go to war. Jeff had to serve in Desert Storm, and that's very traumatic when the spouse goes away and the bombs are falling and you don't know what's happening. It's really hard. But somehow you get through it. You say your prayers every day, and that's it. And luckily we made it. Some don't make it, and that's very, very sad. But there's help for them as well. That's also the good thing of being in one of the armed services, and all of the armed services. We're all there for each other. Everyone helps one another. So there are many ways of support. And one of the things, like we do now, we support the families by trying to get their children educated.
It's absolutely imperative, but the kids in the military, many times it's kind of like the family business, and they want to go back in the military. So these scholarships help them, but those that don't, they seem to thrive through all of that. What we call adversity, it's an adventure for them. Wouldn't you agree? And by the way, where did you guys get to go with your kids? What part of the world? I mean, you were deployed.
Well, we had, as I mentioned, we had 4 tours in Germany. Actually, my son attended school in a one-room German schoolhouse. I'm sure they don't exist anymore, but it was a phenomenon, and it was very interesting. But he got a great education, and he learned to speak fluent German. And so did my daughter as a little girl. She went to a little German kindergarten with the nuns, and people could not understand in that little village how we could move so many times and how we could tear our children out of school, because of course there the children went to the same school all their lives. But those were interesting experiences. And then Jeff was deployed to the Middle East. I got to visit him there. So for me, that was an experience I will certainly never forget. How
I can only imagine.
Yes, as a Western woman, to be submersed in that Eastern culture, in that Islamic culture, is an experience that's probably something for another day. But yes, that is really a very extraordinary experience. So our children, we moved in many states in the United States as well, west, south, east. So they got to experience a lot, Jim. Yes.
Oh, I can only imagine. Colonel Gault, what did you do? What was your job in the Army other than a military officer? What area did you specialize in?
I was a air and missile defense officer. So we deployed the Hawk missile systems and the Patriot missile systems, which was used extensively, as you know, in Desert Storm. And a lot of the missile defense units are overseas, which led to our being stationed overseas so many times.
You know, one of the things that I found with people like you and what you did, there are a lot of jobs. I would think that was it Raytheon missile systems up in McKinney, and there are plenty of jobs for people who actually had your training in the military.
Yes,
And
yes.
and
The Patriot system is made by Raytheon, and so there are opportunities there, obviously, and a number of defense contracting firms in our local area, several of whom support us with the Army Scholarship Foundation. Raytheon supports us with the Army Scholarship Foundation. Elbit Systems of America is another defense-related company, and they are big supporters of us. With the Army Scholarship Foundation, these corporations step up and do corporate responsibility of helping to fund us so that we can help our military family members.
I think that's so amazing. A lot of people don't know how much those contractors actually contribute, and they are a very substantial portion of your deal. And they're going to be at your event on October the 24th. Is that correct?
Yes, we have a number of sponsoring corporations that will be at our luncheon, which is open to the public. Information is on the website, www.armyscholarshipfoundation.org. But our luncheon is on the 24th. There'll be several hundred people in attendance, and we'll be talking about military families today. And there's an opportunity to network other key business and civic leaders within the local area, as well as to help our scholarship foundation to support our military family members.
Jeff, I remember one year when I was there, you had an exceptional young lady, and we can talk her story later, but she got a heck of a job offer after giving a speech. That she talked about how this had helped her and impact her. And there was a guy, I don't remember what company, but man, didn't he walk up to her and said, I'll hire you right on the spot? I think
Yes.
It was that interesting.
Yes, it was
And
a young Army wife. Yeah. I'm sorry. It was a young Army wife who was going to TWU to get her bachelor's degree. She was separated. Her husband was deployed in a different state. She had 2 young kids under the age of 10. She was working full time, and she was going to school full time. And she told her story to this group of business and military and civic leaders at our luncheon a few years ago. And the senior person from Bell Helicopter was so impressed, he offered her a job on the spot. And once she graduated, she went to work for Bell. So it goes back to reflect on what you said and what Rose said about the quality of these Army families and the resilience that they display and the fortitude in seeking and achieving their own goals.
One year, Jeff, I was sitting at a table, and the gentleman next to me was the military liaison or whatever for Toyota, because Toyota has a big facility here in North Texas. And
yes.
I mean, so the point that I'm trying to make is, if you're a young man and woman and you've just gotten out of the military, you ought to sign up and go to the Frontiers of Flight Museum, because it's not only a lot of fun, but you're going to get to rub elbows with people who are very influential in our community in terms of employment. So that's another benefit for being part of this.
Yes.
Well, actually, it happened last year. Yeah, it happened last year too. The young lady that was the speaker drew the attention of our local congressman. Remember? So these speakers, well, I'm not saying that it's only the speakers that we have. It's what we talked about earlier, Jim, is the quality of the students that we draw that are really exceptional young men and women that apply for a scholarship. And it's all of them, really. They're so eager. They need the help so badly that they just work very hard in school because they want the scholarships. And that's our goal in general. We want to make these young men and women and spouses productive members of society. That's the goal. That's what we want. And luckily, we're succeeding, except we're not succeeding enough. And that's why, as what Jeff is talking about, we need to have these fundraisers, because we cannot give all the applying students a scholarship every year. Every year we have to turn some of them away. And that is heartbreaking, Jim.
I know. How many people apply, Rose?
Well, we have at least 500 that apply, at least, and it's more every year. I think last year it was probably even 600, and we only have enough funds to fund probably half of them. So it's just, as I said, it's heartbreaking to have to turn them away, and we work very hard to raise the money, but it never seems to be enough.
Okay, everybody listening to us on Amazon Fire and Roku and around the world on the DBTV network, we are so thankful for you. Pay attention, because you may not be able to come to Dallas and join us at the Frontiers of Flight, but you can donate. We've got the website up. Nathaniel has put it up, and you can donate money that would help. And if you've got a military contracting business, think about what you could do to help these young men and women, because it's going to put you right in the front of also hiring, because that's going to give you some exposure as well. So we're going to make an unabashed, I'm telling you, appeal. Donate. Army Scholarship Foundation. We do everything we can to help them. It's important with the military family. And I think it's also important for you, if you're a businessman in North Texas or wherever, and you come to Dallas, let's come to this wonderful opportunity to meet and greet, but also to enjoy it. Frontiers of Flight, that is a fun venue. Now, Jeff, we're going to be going on a break in just a minute or two. I want to go back to, how did you meet Miss Rose? Where were you guys when you met? And then I'm going to ask Rose, what was it like to suddenly make the decision that you're going to be in a military family? Because I want to talk more about the military family. And one of the things that is so amazing is military families are so strong. They are resilient. They are experienced around the world. They get opportunities many of us never even dreamed of. This is important to talk about the military family, and here's a way to talk about it and to put something behind it, which is the Army Scholarship Foundation. We're going to take a break and hear from our sponsors. And again, thank you to DBTV Network. Thank you for AUN out in California, the TV network that carries this. Again, if you're in Northern California and you want to help, Army Scholarship Foundation is worldwide. Many of these scholarships come from around the world. So we're going to be right back after these words. This is Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Hey, this is Jim Blythe and Veterans Impact Show. I've got two great friends, Rose Gault and Jeff Gault. And Jeff, you're in a circular room. We're kind of having fun.
You turned around.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
This is the beautiful of StreamYard and this technology, but guess what? Sometimes it's not. I think he's frozen, Rose. I think maybe we scared him a little bit. When I was going to ask you, Rose, how did you meet Jeff? Because he seems to be frozen.
Yeah, right. Well, you may not know this, but I was born and raised in a small country in Europe called the Netherlands. A lot of people know it by the name of Holland. So
You're Dutch.
I'm Dutch, exactly. And the history behind all this is that in 1967, the French were so nice and kicked NATO out of their country. And I became employed in 1970 by a subordinate NATO headquarters called Allied Forces Central Europe in the town very close to my hometown. And Jeff arrived there around that time as a young lieutenant. So basically the rest is history. We met, and We met 2 years later in 1972, and in 1974 we were married. And then a year later, I came with him to the United States. I was kind of adventurous, I guess. It was not easy leaving your family and everybody behind and go on this adventure. And I kind of knew beforehand that you have to move a lot. And we moved 20 times. So it was interesting.
So what was on your mind, Rose, was the adventure, not to mention this handsome young Army lieutenant. I mean, really smart guy, rocket scientist, you know.
Yeah, he was smart, he was handsome, he was nice. So we just embarked on it. We had a couple of children, and but as you said, it is not always easy. You have to do a lot of moves. And I was just talking to someone about that yesterday, a friend. The Army will move you, but then all the rest is up to you. It's not like they're going to give you new curtains and new rugs and new everything that will all fit in this new house. I would buy bed sheets, and for every bedroom that I had, I would cut them up and make new curtains. And I did that for every house that we moved into. So, and as I mentioned earlier, the salary that you receive in the Army is not quite the same as what you would get for a similar job in civilian life. So you have to be kind of mindful about what you spend because you don't have that much. So,
but Jeff, haven't the salaries increased some in the last few years to help the military out?
Yes, they have. But what we find in society, American society today, is most couples both work. So if the Army is going to uproot, let's say the soldier, and most of them are wives who are also working in a local job somewhere, they have to quit their job and move to a new location, perhaps overseas. And so they have to start over. And we find that most military spouses are underemployed in that they are far more qualified than the jobs that they're holding. So they're getting so much less money. They always have to start over at the bottom and work their way up. And just when they start to get some upward mobility, they have to up and move again. So it's very, very difficult on military families. Same thing for the kids. A lot of the military kids work after school or on weekends, and they have to quit their jobs and go start somewhere anew. So it's a very, very difficult challenge financially for our military family members.
And I think, again, that's where the Army Scholarship Foundation comes in more ways than just money. It's not just the money, because the money is also a motivational tool that they really study hard to not only earn the scholarship, it's also cobbling up, because there are other scholarships out there. And when people know, hey, you vetted them, it's going to make it easier for them to get other scholarships, because these kids, I mean, they put together quite a bit to make it really work. And that shows resourcefulness. That shows leadership, correct?
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting just to tell a little story. We had a young lady whose father was forced to retire from the military due to a disability from a combat zone, and was divorced. And so the young lady who wanted to go desperately to college ended up having to work as a barista at a coffee shop to help support her younger brothers and sisters and her father, and was going to have to forego her college. But she still had that hope, and she applied to a number of scholarships. And she tells us the story that the first one she got was from us. And she was just thrilled. And so that emboldened her to redouble her efforts. She said, I could get a scholarship from somebody. The Army Scholarship Foundation gave me one. And so she continued to try, and ultimately was able to graduate and to move on to a good job here with a defense contractor in the local area.
Absolutely. And let me also mention, Army Scholarship Foundation, there is the Army Emergency Relief. And I know General Ray Mason, who heads that up, they do scholarships as well. And I think that you're basically vetting them and helping out there. There are a lot of opportunities for young men and women. One of the other things, which I think is a byproduct of the military, what I learned when I went in was the training in the Navy was incredible. They actually taught instructors how to instruct. And all of the training I had was terrific, and it really helped me. I think this is a change in mindset for young men and women who are coming out of high school and don't know what to do. Not only does the discipline, but the lifestyle and the training. And that training sets them up for success further in life in terms of going to college and getting a better education. So we're going to take a break for just a second to hear from all of these sponsors. Now, I'm with Fairway Independent Mortgage, which we've said my NMLS number is 311548. The corporate one is 2289. That takes care of the legal obligations. Thank you, Fairway. Thank you, Fairway, so much, too, for about $1 million that's been given away for service dogs to our veterans. We are a military-oriented, Christian-oriented company. We're here for you. We'll be right back after these words from all of our partners. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Listen, this is one of my favorite programs, and quite frankly, many people go, well, Jim, I've seen this before. You bet. I do this about once a year to promote this, and this is the time of year for young men and women to be looking at, where do I want to do? What do I want to do? And you need to start basically going to the website, Army Scholarship Foundation. Now, you're closed for this year, but you start when, in January, with your application process. Is that correct?
Yes, the application window for scholarships for the following academic year opens in January and runs through April. So January, February, March, April. It's when the students are able to apply. They apply online. All the instructions and eligibility are on our website. And then we make the decisions in the summer and provide the scholarships at the beginning of the academic year. So we just finished a round of awarding scholarships here in August, September. And we gave out 407 scholarships to deserving military family members this past year. That's a 1/3 increase, and that's enabled by the generosity of our supporters, people who come to our Help Our Heroes luncheon, people who make online donations to the Army Scholarship Foundation, people who participate in our events, people who make a donation in memory of a loved one who may have passed away or who may have served in the Army. There are plenty of opportunities to support what we do and to help our military family members. And all that information is online.
Jeff, do you have a program that if I wanted to give a substantial amount of money to be an ongoing scholarship each year, do you have a way that people can do that to create that legacy?
Absolutely, we do. We have a number of family members who have established scholarships, let's say for a father who served in World War II, or someone who was killed in action, a brother, a son. And those are established for that larger amount of money, and then that becomes a perpetual scholarship. We make those awards every year in the memory of that particular person. And in the scholarship note that we send to the students who receive it, we put a little bio in for that person, in memory of what their life was like. So it continues the legacy of that loved one in perpetuity.
How much is needed to be able to create one of those legacy scholarships? Okay, how much do you need to set that up? 10,000, 15,000, 20? How much?
It's $30,000 to set one up, and those donations can be made over a couple of years. so it can be spread out. But that allows us to give a scholarship with that endowed fund. That allows us to give a scholarship every year in the memory of that person.
Now, do you guys go around to the various bases, such as down in Central Texas to the bases? I believe they've changed the name to of Fort Hood to what, Cavos or something? I'm not sure.
Fort
Cavazos.
Cavazos.
Well, at least it's keeping with Central Texas. Do you go around and explain this to the various bases?
We do.
Well, we don't go around
time
to various bases, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rose. Go ahead.
We don't go around necessarily to the various installations, but we approach the organizations on all the installations in the United States and abroad. For example, they all have spouse organizations that raise money, and we approach all of them and ask them to support us. We go to Japan, we go to Germany, to Korea, to all the ones in the United States, and quite a few support us, Jim. It's very gratifying. And as you mentioned, the former Fort Hood, Fort Cavazos now, they support us almost every year. And then Jeff and I drive down there and we go to the ceremony and they present us with a nice check. And they're just all wonderful people. And it's just for us very nice because I used to be a member of those same organizations, and we get to bond again with the people that we feel. So it's like being in a family. I'm sure you probably have had experienced the same thing in the Navy. You are a member of a family, and you're a member of that family for life. You all help one another. And that's the beauty of it. It's just a really, really fabulous thing.
I'm a member of VA 163, which was my Navy fighter squadron, and I'm going to be in October at a reunion in Pensacola, and those guys are great. And I think it's that camaraderie, but also talking about the support that you get from the bases and all. Some of the other support you get. We were talking, Jeff, earlier about AUSA, the Association of the United States Army. They've got a golf tournament coming up that's been sold out, but they're a big contributor to you guys. And I think that's one of the things people need to take a look at as well, that our Wounded Warrior Golf Classic helps out, big contributor to your scholarship foundation.
Yes, that golf tournament is going to take place at Firewheel on Monday. And the proceeds for that go to a number of military-related organizations, to include the Army Scholarship Foundation. And they help our Wounded Warriors. They help our military charities across the North Texas region. And they are big supporters in this Audie Murphy chapter of the Association of the U.S. Army. Without them, we couldn't do what we do.
That's the biggest chapter in the United States, from what I remember, that you and Richard and Patty McCoy and everybody have talked about. Again, let's talk about, excuse me, the eligibility. It's on the website. So here is a mark. Here is a benchmark. Think of it. Okay, if I was going to be running a race, I got to know what it is I'm running. I got to know what it is I'm trying to do. What are my goals? Or like if you went around an obstacle course, what are my goals? How have I got to jump over this or do that? So go to the Army Scholarship Foundation, and basically the applicants must be sons and daughters of regular active duty military, reserve, active duty, National Guard, U.S. Army members in good standing, or spouses, or serving in an enlisted military activity. Also, the sons and daughters of former U.S. Army members who received honorable discharge or medical discharge, who were killed while serving in the U.S. Army. I imagine there's quite a few of those young people that really need some help because they've lost a family member. Not that there's quite so many people that have died, but that there's so many people that have lost that income in a family member. And they got to have a 2.0 grade point average on a 4-point system. When Diane and I helped you guys and we took a look at the applications, good heavens, I never saw anything above about a 3.5 or 3.2. Below that. They're all above 3-point or better, which must be part of the motivation to get this and do this.
Yeah, as we mentioned, Jim, these students are very motivated. A lot of them have gone through quite a bit of hardship, but I think that has just spurred them on, and it makes them stronger. As we've been talking about before, what these kids go through, it really makes them very strong, and it motivates them to work so much harder. And I've talked about some of these cases before, but we've had some where neither Jeff or I were able to talk after we looked at, and you've looked at some of the applications.
Oh, yeah.
But he came home one day and handed me an envelope, and out fell 2 sheets of paper, and both of them were death certificates. And I just said, oh, this is really odd. And the one said gunshot wound to the head, the other said gunshot wound to the chest. As it turned out, the father of the student had shot and killed his spouse and then himself. We were
Man.
like, we just looked at one another, and the tears were in my eyes, and we couldn't talk. This girl actually had, the guardian, of course, signed the papers, applied to us midway through college, and she graduated 2 years later. And you just
Isn't that fantastic? Our Army Scholarship Foundation, it should be said Army Scholarship Family Foundation, because you, in effect, became part of her family. You became an aunt and uncle to that young lady.
Yeah, I mean,
And this is
immediately, of course,
important.
we said, yeah, we're going to help her. This is a no-brainer. This didn't even go in front of any committee or of any evaluation person. This was for us. We will help her right away. But
Yeah.
you just wonder, how does a child like that grow up and indeed turns into a productive citizen? These are miracle children, Jim. These are miracles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, while you tell that horror story, by being in that military environment, they had a resilience. They had certain toughness. They had a certain strength. I'm gonna equate this to either running an obstacle course or going to the gym. I'm not gonna improve if I don't practice. And those kids, by being in a military family, we're getting discipline. We're getting opportunities that other people don't see. You know, they got out of a great opportunity to be part of something bigger and better, or they were part of that. And I think that's important for the military family and for people to know about the military family. Can you tell me some more stories about some of your recipients? Because I know a lot of them have gotten great jobs. We mentioned 2 that got job offers right there at your foundation luncheon.
Well, I'm sure Jeff
Yeah.
knows some.
Go ahead.
I'm sure Jeff knows some more also, right?
Well, we've had, just in general, we spoke about the one lady who spoke at the luncheon and was given a job offer on the spot. Another lady who, I say lady, I mean, these are young high school students who are going to college. So many of them are first-time college students in their families and are able to persist and actually graduate. And that's one thing we haven't mentioned. You know, we did a study a few years back, and we found that 90% of our scholarship recipients go on to graduate from college, over 90%. And if you look nationwide at what the graduation rate is, it's around 65% for all college students nationwide. So that goes back to what we were saying about the stick-to-itiveness of these military family members. and their resilience and their ability to continue to study and do what they set out to do. They graduate.
You know, one of the other things I didn't know as a young man about the ROTC programs in college. I mean, I saw an ROTC program in my high school, but I didn't know there was a Navy ROTC program. I think at SMU there was an Air Force one, University of Texas, a Navy one. I believe there was Air Force also over at TCU. And so these college campuses basically have ROTC programs that are tremendous. And if you are a young man or woman and you apply, you get like free ride on everything. So can you also apply for an Army Scholarship Foundation if you're going through a junior ROTC program or an ROTC program?
Yes. We had a young man a few years ago who was a son of a non-commissioned officer, and he was in the Citadel, which is one of America's military colleges, and this was in South Carolina. And he received a scholarship from us all 4 years. While he was doing ROTC, he graduated and was commissioned as an Air Force officer, Air Force second lieutenant upon graduation. But he sent us a note and he said, I would not have made it, despite the fact that he had an ROTC scholarship. He had all these other expenses. I mean, college is more than just tuition. He was able to, with the assistance of our scholarship, and the ROTC scholarship, he was able to graduate and be commissioned.
Let's make a point of that again. Even if your son or daughter is going through one of the ROTC programs at one of the colleges, you can apply and get the Army Scholarship Foundation. And Jeff just made a point of a young man who did that. And it's open to young women too. We tend to have more men in the military for obvious reasons, but it is available to everybody. Rose, you made mention of something as you were the undersecretary or assistant for diversity for the Air Force. Mention real quick what you were telling me about diversity, because our military family are diversity. They're the epitome of diversity. And we think of typically of looking at color of the skin and race, but it's deeper than that. Can you expound on that for just a minute?
Yes, I was selected to be the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Diversity for the Air Force under the administration of President George W. Bush and President Obama. And it was a very interesting experience. I was in the Air Force at the time. A large portion of the officers in the Air Force were males and fighter pilots. So they're kind of looking at making sure that the females were, well, not only treated properly, but that there were an equal number or better number of females. And in the course of my studies of diversity, I realized that people look at race, religion, and sex as the major aspects of diversity. But I found out that there are many other aspects of it, such your culture, where you're coming from. If you look at me, you think that I'm just a regular white female, but not really. As I told you earlier, Jim, I was born and raised in Europe. I come from a totally different culture. I speak a different language. English is like my third or fourth language.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's so amazing. When you travel with a military family, you're going to be speaking other languages. Now, we're going to have to take a break in just a second. So we're going to come back and wrap up talking about the military family and talking about the Army Scholarship Foundation. It's important. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. I got to tell you, this is one of my favorite programs each year. Maybe we ought to do this once a month because it's so important. And it's not just Army. Believe it or not, the Navy League has a scholarship foundation. Air Force has got a scholarship foundation. I don't know what the Coasties have because I couldn't find it, nor the Merchant Marine, but there are opportunities, and there are opportunities to not only get an education, but a start in life that is heads and shoulders above everything else. I can walk into a room and I spot somebody, and I've done it many, many times. Diane will tell you. And I'll walk up to him and I say, "You're former military." "Yes. How did you know?" We carry ourselves differently. And that's part of the advantage of a military background. I think it brings you a discipline, brings you a respect, brings you a fortuitousness, maybe. You're going to go forward. You're going to do things. So again, Army Scholarship Foundation. Go to the website. We're showing it here on Facebook, YouTube, on our TV networks. This is important wherever you are in the world. Now, Jeff, one of the things is you showed me when we went through the things, these scholarship applications don't just come from the state of Texas. They don't just come from the United States. They come from around the world, correct?
Absolutely. We have many applications that come from Korea, from the U.S. Army, Japan, from Europe, Italy, all over the world. Wherever our military and our families are serving, those students, those military family members are eligible to apply, and they do. And so we send scholarship funds to universities to represent kids all around the world, military families. It's definitely a worldwide organization, and we're supporting our Army family members who are serving worldwide.
And I think this is important. I think, Jeff, what would you say to a young man or woman? Or Rose, what would you say to a young woman or even a man who is going to be marrying into a military family about the importance of what the military teaches, whether it's 2 years, 4 years, or 24 years? What is the advantage? What would you say to that young man or woman?
Well, I would say that the whole experience enriches you. Number one, you just mentioned about meeting people and kind of getting a feeling that they served in the armed forces. And that is so true, Jim, because also what you learn is you learn a warmth, an openness. People look at you and they embrace you, which, sad to say, it doesn't always. I mean, it happens a lot. We live in the South, so people are very warm and open there. That is true. But if you have served in the military, if you're in the military, you learn to take care of each other, which is what Jeff and I have perpetuated in our retired life. And that is what you do. You learn to take care of each other. You learn to support each other wherever you go. And even though there were many hardships, as we talked about before, there are many moves and it's not easy. But wherever you go, you have an instant family. So don't be afraid. That's another advice I would give people. Please don't be afraid. I know it's scary. I left my country and my family behind. But when you get wherever you're going, there are people there that are going to help you. So you'll be enriched, but don't be afraid.
It's fantastic. And Jeff, you spent how many years in the Army?
I served for 29 years.
Why didn't you make it 30? I'm messing with you.
I guess I just fell short that 1 year.
You were saying something and I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, I just said almost.
Well, guys, I got to tell you again, please go to Army Scholarship Foundation.org, and it's important. Make a donation. I want to see, make a donation. If you make a donation, send me an email, give me a call, tell me, hey, I supported Army Scholarship Foundation. You don't have to tell me how much, just say, I support that. And if you're a businessman, your company can use the tax write-off, let me tell you something. This is a great place to go. Wouldn't you like to have a scholarship for your business that's awarded every year? And Jeff just told us how to go about doing that. We want to support to the point where if we get 1,000 applications, we want to put out 1,000 scholarships. And it's going to take money, and it's going to take everybody joining in to be part of this Army family. Again, this is important. ArmyScholarshipFoundation.org. It's such a huge part of what we do as a community and as a nation to support our active duty military, to support our families. And I got to tell you, I came from a Navy family. My grandfather was career Navy. My father was Navy. He was the radioman that got the message about Pearl Harbor. I grew up in the Navy. It was a bulkhead. It was an overhead. It was a deck. I never knew what a floor was. So, that, though, gives you resilience. And that resilience and going to boot camp, going to the Navy was the best thing that ever happened to me. Yes, it was tough. Yes, there were people that made it tough. But I got to tell you, I immediately went back to college and I was a straight A student. Made all the difference in the world. Guys, I like to close with a prayer. So I'm going to say a special prayer. Lord God, King of the universe, I come to you in prayer and say thank you for men and women like Rose and Jeff Gault, who do so much for our military families, who do so much for our nation, not only in service, but in just attitude and setting an example. Dear God, we thank you for the hedge of protection around our active duty military, our first responders, those who run into the fire instead away from the fire. And dear God, this was the month of September, and we remember those from 9/11. Thank you, dear God, for all you do to protect us, and thank you for inspiring our veterans to lead in our communities, to do things like Rose and Jeff Gault do. Thank you, dear God, for having served, and thank you, dear God, for giving me the opportunity to serve. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Guys, you
Really
have a
appreciate it.
wonderful day.